Hey everyone, this is Josh, and you're listening to Cyber-Conversations. Today we're wrapping up our discussion on Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and next week we will be beginning our discussion on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That one should be pretty exciting because we have very different views on that episode. In the meantime, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Please leave comments. We'd love to hear from you, and without further delay, I'll let you into the show. I do hope you enjoy it, and thank you for listening. So
So then we get
anyway,
the reveal that Luke and Leia are sister and brother.
yeah,
We
we
get it
had the
from
hint.
Luke himself, so
Yeah,
he's got that thing tickling on the inside, and
we
he
had the
figures it out on
hint
his own.
from the Empire Strikes Back when Yoda said there is
Yeah.
another. And I don't know if this is something weird or not, but when I was a, you remember that I told you last week there was a period of time when I didn't watch movies because something that happened when I was a kid, and so I didn't see the first two. I didn't see them until they were on TV. I did see Return of the Jedi in the theater, but I remember as a kid thinking Luke and Leia were brother and sister, and I asked my friends, they're like, "Are they brother and sister?" And they're like, "No. Why would you think that?" Then Return of the Jedi came out, and I was right.
That would be horrifying.
I don't know why, but I always had a feeling they were going to be. I don't know, maybe because of alliteration, Luke and Leia. I
But
don't know.
Lucas also in that moment introduces the idea that, well, I mean, we've already seen sort of Obi-Wan's disembodied voice. We've already seen him physically appear to Luke in Hoth, but that could have been a vision, that could have been a hallucination, could have been in his mind.
Hmm.
So now we finally have a calm dialogue-based moment where he is, sitting calmly with Luke in full view while Luke is, calmly, minded without, dying in a snowstorm. And so this is not a hallucination. This is not a disembodied voice. This is some form of eternal existence that maybe people in Star Wars universe have available, maybe the Jedi have available,
Yeah,
but
maybe
this
only
is
yeah.
a form of immortality here that we're dealing with,
What I
and
u-
it is a whole nother
what I used to
part of the
call a
Star
blue
Wars
glowy.
lore. Yeah, well,
That's what I used to refer to
this
it
is
as.
established in Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
This is established in Return of the Jedi. And it's one of many things that Return of the Jedi provides for us that becomes fertile storytelling ground later.
Yeah. And of course we get the infamous from a certain point of view, which is
Yeah, there's a little bit of moral relativism in there. Lucas is not trying to mimic any religion. Lucas is trying to make, blanket statements based on all the world religions
mhm.
without necessarily like, associating with any of them. He is creating a brand new religion a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's just pure fantasy. It's not trying to plug in, but there's definitely a bit of moral relativism to the whole, everything but depends on the point of view that you're talking,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a religious, it's kind of a religious statement, it's a statement about the nature of truth. I mean,
Hmm.
how much more religious do you get than that?
Yeah. Although not for
But it is a
nothing.
big part of it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I was going
No,
to
that's
say
okay.
one thing that I do appreciate a lot about the Obi-Wan TV show is how they tie into that statement from a certain point of view.
Yes,
You didn't kill
yes, they
Anakin,
did.
I did. That was
It is a
fantastic.
a testament to the writing of the show that they address the fact that this has been a controversy for a long time, and let's hear it from the character's own, voice.
Yeah,
And then of course it immediately becomes canon, which makes it, mean so much more. So
yeah. But I do love that scene. So yeah, we got that scene, and then we get the planning with and we have the the final parts, the whole final
Oh,
act
oh
on
yeah, the
Endor.
introduction of the Rebel fleet. Come on, man. I love that. I love
Hmm.
it has sort of you got to go back to 1984. Battlestar Galactica is still playing on TV in reruns.
Uh-huh.
It's only a few years old at this point, when it was originally published, and it has this echo of Battlestar Galactica being a ragtag fugitive fleet. Like it's just
Mm.
all these different kinds of vessels that are all just sort of cobbled together. The Empire's got all these giant triangles that are all uniform, and the rebels are all over the place. But it's big. It's big. Each one of these things is like a capital ship. It's got hundreds or even thousands of beings inside of it, and so we get this introduction that, oh wow, these guys really are. They're not messing around. Like before, we saw a base on a moon that took off,
Oh,
and they were going against this moon-sized space station. So we didn't really get any confirmation that the Rebel Alliance was all that well equipped until this moment, and a victory theme on the part of John Williams' part. The Rebel Alliance theme is awesome. I love the battle music during the fleet battle over the new Death Star. Yeah, so the Rebel fleet is introduced,
okay.
and when it's introduced, the John Williams has a sweeping theme that ends up becoming, one of the main themes governing the space battle with the big fleet at the end of the movie, and it's foreshadowing in this introduction to the Rebel fleet. But it definitely is shocking to see this ragtag fleet of vessels that represent everything the Rebel Alliance has to throw at the Empire, because so far we haven't really seen much of what the rebels are capable of on Echo Base. They haven't even got like the snow speeders like tuned into the environment yet, so they only finally get them out, and on the same day they get them out, they basically all get shot down by the AT-ATs. That's all they got. They got a big shield generator. That's impressive. But and then in on Yavin 4, they got this ancient moon, this ancient ruin on a moon, which they clearly didn't build, and they've sort of moved into it. And then they launch a couple of dozen snub fighters at this moon-sized battle station, and that's all we know of what the Rebel Alliance has. And then here in this critical moment in Return of the Jedi, we are given the full vision of the Rebel Alliance at full force. And it's fantastic to see all the scrapped together capital ships that have hundreds or thousands of beings in them, and it's an alliance. It's a bunch of people that are beleaguered by this massive empire. The empire's over here with a fleet of cookie cutter triangle, destroyers, and then our guys over here have got every possible. I think Lucas deliberately shaped many of those ships to be awkward in proportion because it looks like a cobbled together fleet, and
Yeah.
it's accompanied by this theme from Williams that ends up becoming a big part of the space battle music at the end of the movie too. I love me some space shops, man.
Some what?
Yeah, it's just space shops. It's in my blood. I gotta have space shops.
Oh.
I gotta see all the space shops I can see. If it has space shops in it, it probably already has got my attention.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm supposed to be an astronaut. I'm particularly personally thrilled by the idea of exploring space and the possibilities. I think all of us are sort of bent on exploring. I'm especially males, I guess. We've kind of been doing that throughout all of history, pressing the boundaries, and we have to acknowledge the fact that we live on a planet that has very few boundaries left, and so I think there's an itch in all of us to awaken the Christopher Columbus inside and go, see something nobody's ever seen before. So
Mhm.
I think when I see vessels in the vacuum of space, it excites me about possibilities.
I agree.
And most of the time in Star Wars, the possibilities are who you're going to blow up next.
Yep.
But I particularly love like a fiction like Star Trek, where it's like the whole point of being out there is to,
To
broaden the
explore.
horizon and
Yeah.
see new things.
So, so then we go into the planning and we get to meet Mon Mothma for the first time, who's another character who, like, we knew she was the rebel leader, but we didn't really see her fleshed out much until
No,
the stuff
no.
came out later.
Deeply unimpressive character. I think that's on purpose.
Yeah. And then we get Admiral Akbar, which was just amazing.
Well, let's talk about why it's on purpose.
Okay. Sorry about that.
She's deliberately casted and robed the way she is because we've already been introduced to the Rebel Alliance's fleet, which is just a big hodgepodge of whatever's left over that everybody could kind of pull together on a shoestring budget. And then we go inside, and like the person who's in charge of this whole thing is this middle-aged woman in a white robe. And I think that Mon Mothma, don't get me wrong, Mon Mothma is a very impressive character, but I think she was visually set up in Return of the Jedi to not look impressive because the heart behind the rebellion is not a heart of fire. This isn't some big, wide-jawed, wide-shouldered, a heavy dude with like a scar down his face that's seen a lot of shit and now he just can't stand the Empire anymore.
Mhm.
This is like grandma. This is
Yeah,
like mom. I mean, even her name has a mom sound to it. And I think that the whole point that Lucas was making is that the Rebel Alliance has a heart that is about real normal people, and real normal people have been most victimized by this empire. And so the rebellion is like everyday people pulling together whatever little they have left, kind of like militia in the Revolutionary War, to be able to come against an overwhelming foe to do the right thing. And
yeah,
I think Mon Mothma stands for that, and I think that is, the reason why Lucas did her the way she did, and she does have that impact.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And she is a cool character that we see a lot more of in some of
Yes.
the Disney Plus shows, including one of my
Yeah.
favorites, my second favorite Disney show, third favorite, sorry, my third favorite Disney show, which is Andor. Um,
One of the more excellent casting choices too, I would say, just in terms of trying to reproduce the actual original character with an actress that was not the original
yeah,
character.
yeah,
Excellent
they did a
casting.
very good job, and I do love seeing her.
Could
Although,
could have convinced me it was the same woman.
yeah, and then Admiral Akbar, as I was saying, is another great alien design. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and then come to find out, although we don't get privilege to this information by the end of Return of the Jedi, the biggest of the capital ships, the ones that are really the most well armed and the well armored, and the ones that lead the charge, are actually constructed by and piloted by
Mon,
Admiral Akbar's race,
yeah, the Mon Calamari,
which is really cool, really cool.
just not
Although
imaginatively
I don't,
named.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think Lucas was thinking too hard about the name on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
They look like squids. What are we gonna call them? How about calamari? No, they gotta sound like aliens. Okay, how about Mon Calamari?
I'm
Okay, I love
surprised
it.
that
Go with it.
I'm surprised the green guards at Jabba's palace weren't called porkers.
Yeah. Well, in any case, so then we got him, and then we got General Nadine with an M.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, fake beard man.
yeah.
Oh man, legendary fake beard man. Yeah,
There
that
is
poor guy.
Well, there is one thing though about him, and this is again something that we'll talk about more, I think, if we go on to the extended stuff past the movies. And that's basically if we have the audience for it, we might continue with the other two standalone movies, Solo and Rogue One, and also the shows. There is a possibility, I don't think they ever said for sure, if General Madine might be Agent Callus, Alexander
He
Callus.
did that character deserves a resurrection, and that actor deserves a vindication because I think that in the entire original trilogy there is not a costume snafu more seamless than General Nadine. uh, because wow, I don't understand why the director let that actor stand in front of that camera looking like that, because that
Well,
is not up to the professional level of everything else that we've seen in the Star. And I'm glad it was brief, and it is not the actor's fault. I'm not
yeah, yeah.
saying that he wasn't convincing.
But I would be interested if they would confirm that that could be Agent Callus. I don't know if you're familiar. You haven't watched Rebels, right? Have you
I
watched?
haven't seen Rebels yet. Yeah, and I
Okay.
saw the first two or three episodes, but it just didn't grab my kids, and we didn't finish watching it. And now I am working my way through all of the animated shows that I've missed, and I'm about to get to Rebels, and
Well,
I will
great.
watch
Then I
Rebels
just
this week.
unintentionally spoiled something for you. So please
Well,
forget
and
I said
don't
that.
and no, 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 I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Okay.
And don't vilify me too much for not having seen
No,
Rebels. The
no, no.
fact of the matter is, I love Star Wars, and I have been
But you have limited time.
Loving it since the early 80s, but I am very, very busy and I
Yeah.
just don't watch. I don't have time to watch everything, and I eventually try to, get around to it, but it takes a pretty valiant effort and a lot of
No, I
sacrifice.
understand that completely. And it did, and not for nothing. I did not watch Rebels when it first came out. It took me a little time, but I did
You had the
eventually.
same impression I did. Probably a lot of people. Like
Part
you're
of it
used to Clone
was,
Wars, and then the first episode comes out, and it's like, what is
yeah, it
this?
looked like the
How did the animation
animation was a
downgrade?
lot worse, and I was expecting it to be a kid show, and not for nothing, the first episode was a kid show. The first episode reminded me a lot of Aladdin, the Disney movie.
Well,
It
you could say the
reminded me a
same thing
lot of
about
that.
you could say the same thing about the original Clone Wars movie because that came out before the Clone Wars series, and it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was a good movie, but it was also kind of fresh. Like we hadn't really been introduced but to the Clone Wars at that point yet, at least not on that scale. And so they were kind of finding
Oh
themselves
yeah,
as
yeah,
far as their
yeah.
animation
I
style.
don't
But
fault them at
like,
all.
but Ahsoka's character really grated when I saw the first movie
Oh yeah, yeah.
because she was
She,
disrespectful of Anakin.
yeah,
She would, like she renamed R2, and we don't need that. We don't need a 13-year-old girl to show up and call R2 R2e. It just felt like a kid show. It felt in many ways like they were just making a kid show, and I like kid shows. I really do.
yeah,
But you don't need to talk down to kids. So if you're going to make a kid show to sound like a kid show because you think making kid shows means talking down to kids, you're probably going to lose all your audience except everybody under six.
yeah. But not for nothing. What I mean is specifically the first episode of Rebels was very much, it reminded me of Aladdin in that there's a kid in a deserty looking town stealing fruit from a bunch of guys and running away. And the only thing that would have made it more like Aladdin is if he started singing, one jump ahead.
One step
Yeah.
ahead of the bread line.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only thing that was missing because he stole the fruit, and I was like, "What am I? I'm watching Aladdin." But it ended up
I
becoming,
don't remember it. I just remember that it didn't grab. Like we experimentally watch a lot of pilots, and then
mhm,
it's like I kind of like we get time as a family to sit down a few times a week and actually put like one show on, or sometimes if we're lucky a movie, and it's like if I'm like what do we got, and obviously Hollywood, maybe I'm just standing over here by myself, but Hollywood produces far more video entertainment than any human couch potato has time to consume. So everybody out there has got to have a whole battery of things they've never seen before because they just simply don't have enough time to watch everything that Hollywood makes. Well, when we sit down as a family, usually the question goes out, "What do you guys feel like watching?" And there's usually three or four options, things that we're different kinds of shows that we're if we're in a fantasy mood, sci-fi mood, or if we have time for a half hour, an hour show, or a movie or whatever. And so the after like the second or third episode of Rebels, like it was on the roster, but nobody ever said, "How about Rebels? We haven't seen that in a while." Or I really like that show. Nobody said that, and like weeks turned into months, months turned into years,
I
and I just
completely
realized we're
understand.
not into Rebels.
Especially considering how busy you are, I completely understand. It took a couple of episodes to hook me, but it did hook me pretty quickly, and it
Yeah,
became it's my second favorite. I said that
I'm
Andor
legitimately
is my
looking forward
third
to it.
favorite, but that's only because Rebels just slightly beats it out, and I kind of hover because when I'm watching Rebels, I'm like, yeah, this is better than Andor, but then when I watch Andor, I'm like, nah, this is better than Rebels. Um, so they're both neck and neck. The only show I like more is Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Rebels really got me, and has
Yeah, I look
and
forward to it.
and also has another one. Well, it has my favorite droid, Chopper.
Chopper, right? Chopper.
Yeah. Uh,
Didn't he get a live action chance? Or
yeah,
did I
yeah,
just
yeah, he did.
see?
Yeah, Ahsoka.
Wasn't he also in Bad Batch?
I don't remember if he showed up in a Bad Batch. Maybe he showed up one.
I'm
I
actually
don't
I'm actually
remember.
working through Bad Batch right now for the first time, and I'm a couple seasons in, and that's why I haven't got to Rebels yet.
Yeah,
But I thought I remember Chopper
he
being part of
might.
one of
I
those
know he was live
episodes.
action because he showed up in Ahsoka.
See, this is why true fans watch things twice or more. There's a
Well,
lot of Star Wars I've only seen once, and so I
I understand.
remember the parts that
Chopper,
impressed me. But
I love R2. Don't get me wrong. R2 is a great. character and definitely heroic, and I love R2. And that's not taking anything away from him, but Chopper is my favorite droid.
R2 is the droid of Star Wars. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Maybe Chopper will win me over, but
I'm not
R2
trying to
R2 is the
diss.
only one for the Skywalker saga. R2 was
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
the only character there besides Anakin that was there the entire time.
And C-3PO.
Yeah, but I get it.
I
You like
agree.
Chopper.
R2 is the face, as far as droids is concerned, R2 is the face of the Star Wars mainline movies, episodes 1 through 9. But of all of the droid
Chopper is
characters,
R2 with arms, right?
well, he's, I
Arms
mean,
and a grumpier attitude.
yeah, he's also like where, like a lot of people will describe R2 as, very he's committed a lot of murders over the series, they said, because he's, so loyal and he is a rebel. But Chopper is a war criminal. He like doesn't obey any Geneva conventions. It's just if he doesn't like you, you're in trouble. And if you're a droid, you're in trouble because he doesn't get along with droids
Why?
famously.
That's that's not something droids are supposed to be able to do unless they're built to be assassin droids or something like that. How
And
did
he,
astromech get that attitude?
he
Does he have a
he's
backstory?
I don't remember
This is
completely.
not this is not
He's
about Return of the Jedi, and even if
no
he
no.
did have a backstory, you'd spoil it for me, so I
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
ask.
All I can tell you is he's very, very loyal to Hera Syndulla, who's another character I love.
Okay. Well, I'll figure all that out later.
Yeah, yeah.
I look forward to it.
Um, so we're
So
actually
we've
like
we've
we're
actually pretty we've actually pretty much studied the duel, the duel part, and the rest of it is all fireworks. The good guys win, the bad guys lose. I love the chase scene going down the throat of the Death Star. I love the fact that this time we get to follow the torpedoes all the way in. I love the enormous spherical chamber at the heart of the Death Star with some kind of crazy,
the main
incomprehensible alien
reactor and
technology.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, creating the enormous amount of energy that it takes to destroy a planet and to light that thing, to light it and heat it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we only get it for a glimpse, but it's just like
I do love
super
that.
impressive.
And my biggest issue with Return of the Jedi, of course, at this point becomes the Ewoks. And I don't want to sound like a broken
Way
record.
more
Everyone says
spectacular
that. Everyone
than
says
the
that.
original Death Star. No, not everyone, not me.
Huh?
I love the Ewoks. I love the
Oh,
Ewoks.
it's not that I hate them. It's that I don't like the fact that they managed to defeat, quote, an entire legion of the
Well, so did Mom.
Emperor's best troops.
Yeah, so did Mom. You see the point? You see the connection? So did Mom. The whole idea
Mom?
is the rebels, yes, Mom, Mon Mothma.
Oh, Mon
The
Mothma.
rebels are a scrapped together fleet of junk by a bunch of people that are barely surviving, their neighbors, their friends, their brothers and sisters, their family, and then their leader is literally Mom. And that's what topples the empire. When we go and visit the Ewoks, the exact same thing is taking place on the planet that is taking place in space, and I think that's set up visually on purpose because the whole idea we've just spent the last movie dealing with how incredibly overwhelming this cyclopean power is, this government that is like the ultimate exaggeration of the worst kind of government we would imagine having here on earth. And not only that, but we just got to meet the emperor, and it's led by the devil himself, this magic man, this sorcerer, this space sorcerer that is, reeking of evil, and he's behind this unstoppable technological juggernaut. And so we have the unstoppable technical juggernaut down on in a very beautiful natural setting, destroying everything in its path. So we're like, even the knocking down of the trees is helping us vilify imperial,
Yeah,
equipment. And then the natives of said beautiful environment, regardless of what they look like or how they sound or how they behave, the natives are diminutive, but they're clever. They work together. They're also families. They're also fighting for their home. They're also dealing with an impossible, overwhelming force. And so we have this underdog battle going on, and that's, this is Star Wars staple now, but it hasn't happened until this moment. There was no lightsaber duel going on Yavin simultaneously while we were watching Luke blow up the Death Star in the first movie.
Hmm.
This multiple battles going on at once thing has become a staple in Star Wars. And in Return of the Jedi, you end up having what? You have four. You have a
Four.
struggle
Yeah.
between our here. We have a struggle between our heroes going down the throat of the Death Star. A far more spectacular shot than we got when we just saw Luke's little white, lights go into the hole. And then we have the battle in space, which is a massive battle. Every single one of those explosions is one of our friends dying, or so many
I mean,
TIE
we
fighters we don't
kind
care
of get
about.
them at separate times. When they're in the Death Star, that is the space battle. So I would say there's three things going on.
Well,
There's the space
no, I would
battle,
call
there's
those
the
two
Endor
different things
battle.
because those battles are happening simultaneously. It isn't until um, uh, Lando destroys the reactor that Akbar signals the fleet to withdraw because
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
still engaged in the battle when the
but
Millennium Falcon
most but most of
breaks
that
off.
but most of that battle is taking place before Han has got
Okay,
the shield generator down. So,
then we also have the Ewok battle, which is not just the Ewok battle, but our main heroes
yeah.
engaged in the battle with the help of these natives.
But see,
And
here's the
then, of
thing.
course, we have the emotional, religious,
Yeah,
supernatural almost
with
battle
Luke and
between
Vader.
the father and the son, and the
Yeah.
ultimate climax of the story, and the presence of the emperor, and all of that.
Yeah. But the
And all that's
problem,
happening simultaneously.
yeah, yeah. But my problem with the Ewoks, and this is something that you said, like they represent the rebels. But the thing is, the rebels, yeah, they don't hold a candle to the Empire's numbers, but at least they have similar equipment. Well, they have similar weapons at least. Um, but the Ewoks don't even have that. I don't mind the fact that they're furry, cute little things, and I don't mind the fact that they're diminutive, but they're fighting an entire legion of the Emperor's best troops equipped with lasers and cannons and ATSTs and AT-walkers, and the Ewoks have rocks and twigs and bows and arrows, and some of it, like, I believe in a suspension of disbelief, but this is kind of pushing the believability out the window. And part of it, and this is something that has gone all the way back to the first movie, is that apparently Stormtroopers' armor is made out of tissue paper because we even see a couple of rocks bounce off of a Stormtrooper's helmet, and they have him fall down and scream because I guess we're supposed to assume those rocks actually damaged him, but it doesn't look like they damaged him. It looked like they bounced harmlessly off his helmet. I mean, the whole point of wearing armor is protection. But if you shoot a stormtrooper in the chest where the armor is most likely the strongest, it kills him. He might as well not be wearing anything. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I've
yeah.
never
It's hokey.
understood that.
It's hokey,
And
Josh.
so
It's
so
it's in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, but so
It's
part of
hokey.
that was
It's a bunch of
always an
teddy
issue.
bears.
But that's always been an issue for me. The fact that an
Okay.
entire
Well,
legion,
I think maybe it's an exaggerated issue because you know as well as I do that it's there's many reasons why things are hokey in the Star Wars universe. You get that
yeah, yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
you get that fantastical, and you're gonna have some cheese. There's some
Yeah,
cheese in there.
I don't mind, but
Why
that was something that
why
did
does it
bother me.
impact you so much that it ruins it for you? That would be my
I
question,
don't
and it's
think
a
that,
fair
well,
question.
as I said before, it does, that's not what ruined Star Wars for me. The Ewoks were a problem, but they weren't the big problem for me. My big problem was that all of it felt like a downgrade after the first two movies.
I do. I probably should state, Josh, that I actually do see your point. Of course, I see your point. There's one scene that I'm picturing in my head the most is when the Ewoks show up and they make their cry and then they fly off with their sticks with like the rocks tied to the end of the sticks. They're
Yeah,
hammers. They're war hammers.
yeah, yeah,
And like you could see a scene where the stormtroopers are all like laying down in the grass and like these little teddy bears are like beating on their plastic helmets with
yeah,
little rocks on
yeah.
the
And
end of
I'm
sticks.
like,
And it's like and the stormtroopers are completely they're surrendered.
yeah,
They're utterly defeated. They're crushed. And it's like you could tell the kind of strength that's being displayed there and the kind of weapons that are there. is not what it would take to crush and demoralize,
Yeah, to me, it looked
not to
like
mention
one of them
kill
should stand
these
up and just like
stormtroopers.
huck the thing off. Like, get off of me.
Yeah, 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 which is what would happen if they were the hero.
Yeah,
But
but
there
that was
comes a
part of
point
it.
in a story full of dancing lizards and and cloud people. Um, there comes a point where you are going to push the agenda of the story forward, and when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of professionals all trying to scramble in a natural environment on a schedule on a budget to be able to get things done, sometimes it's just like, you know what, that'll work, we'll fix it in post. And then post comes and it's like, I don't know if we can fix this, and it's like, you got to, because the movie's coming out next week.
Yeah.
So I'm not making excuses. I get what you're saying, and I
Well,
think that that probably could have been filmed better. But how exactly do you show a tribe of teddy bears defeat a massive technological juggernaut?
Well, I don't think they
There's got
should
to be.
have. And here's the thing. I
Oh,
did
well,
hear this
okay.
at one point. I don't remember where. Again, I apologize. Someone probably remembers it and can tell me where it was. But there was a behind the scenes thing where someone, maybe it was Ben Burt, the sound designer, he actually said George Lucas was really disillusioned with the audience by the time Return of the Jedi came out, and he was upset with the way people reacted to the stories. And so George Lucas actually felt like story wasn't as important to him, and he went all in on merchandising. Someone
That is a
told me
lie.
that. Well, that's what
That is
Return
a
of the Jedi
lie.
has always looked
You'd
like
have
to
to
me.
prove that to me before I believe it. I would
Again,
pretty vehemently defend George Lucas against that, because that's the opposite of his character. And I've never heard anybody say that, and it really doesn't make sense. But I would say that 20 years later, he was so disillusioned with his audience that he sold the product to Disney for $4 billion.
well,
I would
again,
actually argue part of
I'm
his
not saying
motivation
this is
for letting go of Star Wars that he had gotten disillusioned, because the audience deserved to be gotten disillusioned against.
yeah,
When a guy comes out on stage and you boo him often enough, pretty soon he doesn't want to come out on stage anymore.
well,
That's a fundamental rule of the theater.
I'm not saying that this is what George Lucas did, but this was the
I get it.
impression.
You heard that. You heard
Well,
that.
that's what
I'm just
someone
saying I
said
don't
in a
believe it.
behind the scenes thing, and I was inclined to believe them by the time I saw it
Okay.
because even as a kid, it didn't look to me like the story was that important. It looked to me like what George Lucas was saying is, I want to sell teddy bears, and that's what always stuck out to me, and that's part of why
I don't
Return of the
remember them
Jedi
selling
felt,
that well. Do you?
huh?
I
I,
don't
I
remember them selling that well.
I don't think they did, but I think that's what he wanted.
They never caught on. Like, it was, Ewoks weren't exactly something everybody had dangling from their mirror.
No, but that's,
I
I
don't remember
think,
anybody I knew having a stuffed Ewok.
no, but that doesn't change what I felt, which was that that's what he wanted. He wanted everyone
Okay,
to buy
yeah,
teddy bears, and it didn't go his way.
yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
uh,
If he did, it was a bad gamble.
yeah, I think that he didn't care. I mean, this was something that already resonated with me. So when I heard them say that in a behind the scenes thing, this was years later, but to me it was like that's confirming it. I don't remember where it was, so maybe I'm imagining it, but I could swear I heard someone say that. And the reason that I still remember hearing it at all was because I was like, I knew it. Because even
Well,
when I
if
was a
anybody
kid,
out there has proof of this,
yes,
I would
please.
love for you to send Josh the link and he will share it with me, because I will believe anything that's true, but I know bullshit when I hear it, and I have to be convinced of that.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
definitely something I would have to be
Well,
convinced of.
I want to know where it was from too, because I really am curious, and I don't have time to look for it now while we're on the air. Um, and I think every time I minimize the window to go onto the internet, I lose your signal. So I'm afraid to do that anyway.
Just leave
Um,
it alone, man. Leave
yeah,
it
yeah, I'm
alone.
not touching the computer. But that's something I heard, and that's something that even as a 10-year-old, I was like, what is this? Why are there a bunch of teddy bears in my Star Wars movie, and how are they defeating the Empire's best troops? It didn't feel like that when I was 10, like exactly like that. I was still kind of along for the ride because I was 10, but it very quickly to me, it was like, this is an okay movie. It was never like, oh, this is a great movie. When I got really excited when Star Wars was being shown on TV, I was always excited for the first one. I was always really excited for the second one, and the third one, I was kind of like, well, I'll watch the end of it because I love the part where Luke defeats Vader. But the Ewok part, I'll skip it. So,
Well,
and don't chew my head off, audience members. It's just me.
yeah, no, you're entitled. Like I said from the very beginning, it seems like, Return of the Jedi left a particular emotional impression on you that is still, if I may be so bold, damaging your ability to enjoy the movie. I'm not going to say it's damaging your opinion because your opinion is whatever it decides to be. But if you can't enjoy the movie, I think that's probably at the center of my point in this issue, is that Star Wars is an example of something that I'm not going to say you have to check your brain at the door. I think it's pretty intelligent.
Oh
In
yeah, yeah.
I think a better way to put it is it's pretty creative, and pretty is a horrible word. It's
It's very
extremely
creative. Very.
ingeniously creative, right?
Hmm.
So from an artist point of view, like I just think I would absolutely fall in love with Star Wars even if I hadn't seen it as a kid as the first time, because from frame one, it's like, wow, that is very original. Look at that. Whoa, that's a weird thing coming out of that guy's head. And so all of that is really entertaining in the details. But the problem, and I'm going to say this in quotes, the problem is that, as we have already discussed more than once, Star Wars has its deeply religious moments. It's very serious philosophical moments and these very, for lack of a better way to put it, terrifying stakes that are affecting real people on a massive, massive, incomprehensibly massive scale. And so when the moment comes, you're supposed to not check your brain at the door, but you're supposed to just sit back and enjoy it because it's a bunch of fireworks. It's fireworks. Like,
Mm.
oh, that yellow firework was a little bit too high. I kind of wish that was a little higher. Well, that may be absolutely true, but the difference between you and the guy next to you is that you are busy criticizing that firework fired 10 degrees lower in the sky than it should, and he's just smiling and drinking his beer because it's a great light show. And so Star Wars is definitely something that you want to be able to have fun with. You have to be able to let your hair down a little bit and just have fun. Just enjoy the flow of it. Enjoy the let's face it, unrealistic and ridiculous notion that the good guys always win and the bad guys always lose.
Mm. Well,
You gotta. I'm not gonna say check your brain at the
no,
door
no,
because
that's yeah.
if it was unintelligent entertainment, I probably wouldn't even like it.
Well, I mean, I also worry that this paints me in a bad light because one of the things that I've always said, especially when I'm having arguments with people who are yelling at me for liking a show like The Acolyte, is I judge a show based on whether I enjoyed it. Not, I don't I
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
spend very
Yeah, I
much
get that
time.
from you.
I don't spend very much time thinking about what's happening and why. I don't spend a lot of time looking at sets. I do look at
So
them, of course,
so
but
what so what happened with the Ewoks then? Because that's like the opposite of what you're saying
I
right now.
think what happened was I was younger then, and it was something where I left the theater really excited, and then as I thought about it, I was like, but wait a minute.
You 10-year-old brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was something that even to a 10-year-old, I mean, it's kind of like the first time I saw Superman the movie. Again, off topic, but the end Superman the movie I loved, but I know I left the theater just like well, actually, the first Superman movie came out when I wasn't watching movies, but I the first time I saw it was on TV.
What
But
did
I was
Superman
really
do
really
wrong?
excited when I saw Superman the movie, and then I thought about it and I was like, well, he flew around the Earth backwards. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. How did that
Sure
change
it does.
time? Well, now
Sure
I've
it does.
heard some people saying that it's representative. It's that he flew faster than the speed of light, and that was what's reversing the time. The Earth didn't actually spin backwards.
Yes. No, of course
Okay,
not.
but to a
Duh.
10-year-old,
It's listen, it time didn't reverse. Superman's own Clark's own perception of time. He is the only person that actually went back in time because every molecule in his body penetrated the light barrier.
I understand,
So,
but this is,
and we're talking about a comic book here.
yeah, I
Again,
know.
check your brain. But yeah, there's a plausible explanation.
Yeah, but that's you're talking to a 51-year-old me. When I was, when the first time I saw it,
Yeah, I get it.
which
I get
was
it.
on TV a couple of years after 1978, um, I watched it. I like came away from it going, "Yay, I love Superman!" And then I was like, "Well, wait a minute, what the hell was this?" You know?
Yeah, I get it. I get
Um,
it. And
So the same
again, you're
kind of
dealing
thing.
with, Alexander Solkine, 1981. You're dealing with, an audience that was entertained by the Partridge Family
Hmm.
and Croft Superstars and Land of the Lost. And I mean, honestly, I was alive at that time, and I'm not in any way pretending that we are like more advanced or more intelligent now than back then. But people were easily entertained, and they didn't ask a lot of questions,
Yeah.
especially about dumb comic book movies that were made for 10-year-olds.
But in any
And
case,
so,
but yeah, that
I don't think they thought it through very much. I think the Superman went back in time thing is a very plausible explanation, but that's because we're older and we're thinking about it. But I don't think they thought about it that much when they actually made the movie.
yeah. But the point is that like what I'm saying about the Ewoks and the battle on Endor in Return of the Jedi makes me look like that's all I care about. But this is the criticism that I felt after watching the movie. When I watched the movie, I enjoyed it, and that's why I'm not saying it's like I'm not saying I don't like it. I do still like it, and I watch it over and over again. But I don't get as excited about Return of the Jedi as I do when I'm about to watch The Empire Strikes Back. That's the movie I'm looking forward to.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because,
Uh, yeah,
and
I know
we
what you
do
mean.
have to kind of wrap this up
I just don't
because
agree with you.
this is definitely going to be this is our two-parter episode.
Yep,
We may
I
have
have that
two-parters
feeling.
for the. Uh, I mean, I imagine that all of these movies might end up being two-parters, each of the episodes, but we'll see as each one comes out. In any case, do you have any last things to say before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay. So, and as I said, this is a show where we agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with his point of view. There's nothing wrong with my point of view. We are still friends, despite the fact that we have very, very different opinions on these movies. As I said before, if anyone is interested in possibly doing what Vern does for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, drop me a line. And if we're going to do that, or if I'm going to do that, I'll reach out to some of you and we can try to talk. And I want to make sure that we have the right personalities, we have the right equipment, and that we have varying points of view because there's not much point in talking to someone who has the same point of view as I do about all of them.
Pineapple absolutely belongs on pizza.
For me, jalapenos belong on pizza. Doesn't matter what else is
Pineapple and
on there.
jalapenos together. If you haven't had that, treat yourself.
Okay, that's something on my list.
Sweet and spicy.
Just
All right,
don't put chocolate does not belong on pizza.
we'll call that an episode.
All right.
We covered
Thank you
Return of the
very much.
Jedi.
Thank you for listening to us. I do appreciate it. If you have any comments that are constructive, even if it's criticism, although if you have something good to say, that's even better. Um, we're looking forward to doing more. Next week we'll be talking about Star Wars Episode One, The Phantom Menace.
Phantom
We have
Menace.
lots to
Yes.
say about this movie. Um,
Yes, sir.
and not
Love
all
it.
of it is wonderful for me, at least. Um,
Great movie.
okay, we'll talk about it next week. I don't hate it, um, but it's far and away my least favorite. Far
We'll
and
talk about
away.
it next week.
We'll talk about it next week. I'm looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to seeing you. I hope you enjoyed this show, and we will talk to you next time. This has been Cyber Conversations. My name's Josh, and thank you again, Vern, and we'll talk to you soon.